In this lesson, we are going to look at while loop. Now, first, let's look at how to rewrite the for loop using a while loop. This is our example from last lesson. If I'm going to rewrite this using a while loop, I'll do I equal to 0. While I is less than 5, I'll do print I. And after that, I must remember to do I equal to I plus 1. I'm going to increase I every time. Now, if we run this, you can see we get the same result for the two loops. So how do you map between these two loops? For this one line in the for loop, for I in range 5, it tells us three things. I starts from 0, I stops at 5, and I is increased by 1 every time. So we need to do this using 3 lines in the while loop. I equal to 0, while I less than 5, and we need to put I equal to I plus 1. Let's look at another example. This is the example from our last video as well, which adds up all the numbers from 1 to 100. Now let's do this using a while loop. Result equal to 0, I'll just copy it over. Now this for loop, I need to change it to 3 lines. So I starts from 1, and while I is less than 101, whatever is the loop, I'll just copy over. Result equal to result plus I. And after this, remember, we need to increase I by 1. So I equal to I plus 1. After this, we need to print the sum is result. Okay, let's run this. We will get the same result. Now you may ask, why do we need while loop? It's more complicated than a for loop. There are certain scenarios that we can only use while loop. We can't use a for loop. For example, if we do not know how many times we're going to repeat, we are not able to use a for loop. Scenario like we are rolling a dice. I don't want to stop until I get a 6. So how many times I'm going to roll? I don't know. So there's no way to use a for loop. We have to use a while loop. Now to show this, first let's simulate how to roll a dice in Python. And we are going to use something called random. To use random, we need to import random first. So this is telling Python we are going to use something from the random. And I'm going to roll a dice. So I get number equal to random dot randint 16. This line is saying that I'm going to choose a random number from 1 to 6, inclusive. So it's the same as rolling a dice. After that, we can print the number. Run this. You can see we get 4. Run again. We get 6. Run again, we get 3. So it's similar to how we roll a dice. Now let's look at the while loop. I want to continue rolling the dice until I get a 6, then I will stop. First, import random. We need a while loop, and we need to check the dice value. Before we start, I'll just make dice equal to 0. Okay. Then I'll check. As long as dice not equal to 6 yet, I need to continue rolling. And how do I roll? I'll put dice equal to random randint 16. After that, we can print the dice just to check. Now we will continue this while loop as long as dice not equal to 6. But if we get a 6, we will stop the while loop. Okay, now let's print a message here. Hooray, I got 6. And you can see this line 6 is outside the while loop. That means after I finish the while loop, I'll print hooray, I got 6. Let's run this. Oh, we are so lucky we get 6 on the first try. Let's try again. Okay, so you can see we get 4, 2, 4, 5. We try so many times until finally we get a 6. Then we stop the loop. Now think about this example. Are we able to use a for loop here? If I use a for loop for I in range, I can't put a number there. So there's no way to use a for loop. And that's the difference between a for loop and a while loop. When we know exactly how many times we are going to repeat, we can use a for loop. We can also use a while loop. But of course, as we have seen, for loop is a much better choice. When we do not know how many times we're going to repeat, there's no way to use a for loop. We have to use a while loop.